The man accused of murdering social media influencer Slickianna Townsend was shot and killed in a police operation in Hanover. Police say Rashawn Patterson, who was out on bail for multiple murder charges, was fatally shot during a confrontation with officers in Dundee Pen, Lucy on Tuesday morning. Reports are that Patterson and an accomplice opened fire on the police when they attempted to apprehend him. Officers returned fire, hitting Patterson, who later died. Patterson first made headlines in October 2022 when Townsend's body was discovered in a sea off Reading St. James. However,
October
his criminal
18th, 2022. A young woman stands in front of her camera, smiling wide. In her hand, she holds a set of keys to her brand new house. Her name is Aneka Townsend, and to her 300,000 Instagram followers, she's known as Slickianna. She posts the video on TikTok with a simple caption, "New beginning." Within hours, 165,000 people watch it. They celebrate with her. They leave heart emojis. They tell her she deserves it. 3 days later, on October 21st, Marine police pull her lifeless body from the ocean off the coast of Jamaica. Her neck bears the marks of strangulation. Her head shows signs of trauma. A bloodied towel floats nearby. Between that hopeful video and her body washing up on shore, only 72 hours passed. 72 hours that would end with a mother losing her daughter, a child losing his mom, and 300,000 followers losing someone they admired. So what happened in those 3 days? Who was with Aneka during her final hours? And why did a night that started with dinner end with her being thrown into the sea like garbage? But before we get into what happened to Aneka, I need to ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were finally getting your life together, only to have everything fall apart? That moment when you think you've made it, and then tragedy strikes? Drop a comment below and let me know what country or state you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. And if you're a true crime fan like me, hit that subscribe button. We cover cases like this every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's talk about who Aneka really was. Aneka Townsend was born around 1987 in Waterloo Road, St. Andrew Parish, Jamaica. She grew up in a place far from the tourist beaches and luxury resorts most people think of when they hear Jamaica. Her life wasn't easy. She faced struggles that she would later talk about openly with her followers. But Aneka didn't let her past define her. Instead, she used it as fuel to build something better. By 2022, Aneka had become a social media star. She went by the names Slickianna and Kion online, and she had over 300,000 followers on Instagram. That's not a small number. That's a stadium full of people who tuned in to watch her life, her style, and her journey. But here's the thing. Aneka didn't even see herself as an influencer. Her close friend, Kareem Weathers, said it best. Outside of what everybody saw on social media, the life of the party, the fashionista, the strong person, Aneka was somebody that lived in her truth. She was somebody that was very much open about her past and her life and her past struggles and how she's just grateful to be in the position that she's in. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She wasn't pretending. She was just being herself, and people loved her for it. Aneka was also a businesswoman. She ran an online clothing store called Slick Pieces JA, where she sold trendy outfits that reflected Jamaica's bold street fashion culture. She worked hard to build her brand, and it was paying off. But more than anything, Aneka was a mother. She had a young son who meant the world to her. At 35 years old, she was balancing motherhood, her business, and her growing online presence. And she was doing it all while staying true to who she was. Then came October 18th, 2022. Aneka posted that TikTok video, the one with the house keys. She's standing there, smiling, holding those keys like they're made of gold. The caption reads, "New beginning." For Aneka, this wasn't just a house. It was proof that all her hard work had paid off. It was a fresh start, a chance to give her son a better life, a moment she had dreamed about for years. The video got 165,000 views. People congratulated her. They cheered her on. They told her she deserved it. And she did. But in just 72 hours, that new beginning would turn into a nightmare. The woman who had fought so hard to build a better life would be gone. Her son would lose his mother. Her followers would lose someone they admired. And her family would be left searching for answers. So how did it all go so wrong, so fast? Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Just 2 days after Aneka posted that hopeful video with her house keys, she made a decision that would cost her everything. That evening, around 7:30 p.m., Aneka left Kingston and traveled 150 miles northwest to Montego Bay. It's a long drive, about 3 hours along Jamaica's coastal roads. We don't know exactly why she made the trip. Maybe it was business. Maybe it was personal. But what we do know is that when she arrived, she was picked up by a man named Rushane Patterson. Patterson went by the nickname Chizzy. He was 33 years old and lived in Prosper, Hanover, a small community about 20 miles west of Montego Bay. How Aneka knew him isn't completely clear. They weren't strangers, but they weren't close either. They were acquaintances, the kind of connection you might have with someone you've met a few times, maybe through mutual friends or social circles. That night, Patterson picked Aneka up, and they drove to a restaurant in Hanover. From the outside, everything seemed normal. Just two people grabbing dinner. Maybe they talked about life. Maybe they laughed. Maybe Aneka checked her phone and saw more comments rolling in on her TikTok video. People were still congratulating her on the new house. After dinner, they left the restaurant and headed to a guest house in St. James Parish. They checked in together. Again, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The staff didn't report anything strange. No raised voices, no signs of trouble. But somewhere between 11 p.m. that night and 9:20 the next morning, everything changed. An argument broke out. We don't know what started it. Maybe it was something small that got out of hand. Maybe it was jealousy. Maybe Patterson said something, and Aneka pushed back. Whatever it was, it escalated fast. And then, Patterson snapped. He attacked Aneka. He wrapped his hands around her neck and squeezed. She fought back. She had to have fought back. But Patterson was stronger. He kept squeezing until she couldn't breathe anymore, until her body went limp, until she was gone. But he didn't stop there. Aneka also had wounds on her head, blunt force trauma. Whether he hit her before or after strangling her, we don't know. What we do know is that by the time he was done, Aneka Townsend, the woman who had just bought her first house, the mother, the entrepreneur, the person who lived in her truth, was dead. And then, Rushane Patterson did something even more heartless. He took her body and dumped it in the ocean. Not buried, not hidden, just thrown into the water like she was nothing. Like her life didn't matter. Like the 300,000 people who followed her didn't exist. Like her son didn't need his mother. The next morning, October 21st, at around 9:30 a.m., Marine police were called to the reading area of St. James Parish. Someone had spotted something in the water. When they arrived, they pulled Aneka's body from the sea. She was still wearing some of her clothes, but investigators also found a wig floating nearby. And a towel that appeared to be covered in blood. The officers examined her body right there on the shore. She had visible wounds on her neck, marks from strangulation, and wounds on her head, signs of blunt force trauma. It was clear that this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a drowning. This was murder. But at the moment, they didn't know who she was. They didn't know about the TikTok video. They didn't know about the house keys or the new beginning. They didn't know that just 3 days earlier, this woman had been celebrating one of the happiest moments of her life. All they knew was that someone had killed her and thrown her away. And somewhere out there, the person responsible was still free. I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think triggered the argument that night? Was it jealousy? Was it something Aneka said? Or was Patterson always capable of this kind of violence? Have you ever had a gut feeling about someone that turned out to be right? Maybe you sensed something was off, even when everything seemed fine on the surface? If you're finding this case as heartbreaking as I am, please hit the like button. It really helps us cover more stories like Aneka's and bring attention to cases that deserve to be heard. Now, let's talk about how police tracked down the man responsible. The moment Aneka's body was pulled from the water, investigators knew they were dealing with a homicide. But they had a problem. They didn't know who she was yet. It took time to identify her, time to notify her family, time to start putting the pieces together. By Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, just 1 day after her body was found, the Jamaica Constabulary Force made a public announcement. They confirmed that the victim was Aneka Townsend, the Instagram influencer, known as Slickianna, and they had a name, Rushane Chizzy Patterson. Patterson wasn't arrested yet. At that point, police called him a person of interest. They believed he could help them understand what happened to Aneka, so they made a public demand. Turn yourself in to the Montego Bay Police Station by 5 p.m. on Sunday, October 22nd. The deadline came and went. Patterson didn't show up. He stayed silent. He stayed hidden. And that told investigators everything they needed to know. If Patterson had nothing to hide, why wouldn't he come forward? Why wouldn't he explain what happened that night? The answer was obvious. He was guilty, and he knew it. Police weren't going to wait around. On Saturday morning, they launched a series of raids across the region. They hit multiple locations, searching for Patterson and any evidence that could tie him to the crime. During one of those raids, they seized a motor vehicle believed to be connected to the case. But this wasn't just a local investigation. This was big. Aneka had over 300,000 followers. Her death was making headlines. And the Jamaica Constabulary Force wasn't taking any chances. They pulled in resources from everywhere. St. James Police, Hanover Police, the Area 1 Operational Support Team, the Communication Forensic and Cybercrime Division, the National Intelligence Bureau, the Technical Services Division, the Specialized Operations Branch. Even the Jamaica Defense Force got involved. And they used Jamaica Eye, a crime tip platform, to gather information from the public. This was an all-hands-on-deck situation. And it worked. Investigators started gathering forensic evidence. They pulled data from phones. They tracked digital footprints. They analyzed messages, call logs, and location data. Cyber forensic experts worked around the clock to build a timeline of Patterson's movements. And slowly, the case against him got stronger. On November 2nd, 2022, almost 2 weeks after Aneka's body was found, police finally caught up with Rushane Patterson. They arrested him in a high-level operation. But here's where things get interesting. When Patterson was first brought in, he wasn't immediately charged with Aneka's murder. Instead, police charged him with something else, an unrelated assault from 2018. 4 years earlier, Patterson had beaten a woman in St. Andrew South, and according to reports, it wasn't just a random act of violence, it was a jealous rage. He attacked her because of jealousy. Sound familiar? This wasn't Patterson's first time hurting a woman. He had a history, a pattern. And now, that pattern had turned deadly. On November 5th, 2022, the post-mortem results came back. The official cause of death, strangulation. Aneka had been strangled to death, just as investigators suspected. She also had wounds on her head from blunt force trauma. 6 days later, on November 11th, 2022, Rushane Patterson was formally charged with murder. But Patterson wasn't the only person facing charges. Police also arrested a man named Rohan Rose. Rose was 47 years old and worked as a security guard. He went by the nickname Early B, and according to investigators, Rose knew about Aneka's murder, but he didn't report it. That's a crime called misprision of felony. It means you know a serious crime happened, and you stay quiet about it. Rose was charged on November 4th, 2022. Later, he gave a statement to police that helped build the case against Patterson. But the damage was done. His silence had given Patterson time to run. You would think that after being charged with murder, Patterson would be locked up until trial. But that's not what happened. Patterson was granted bail. Conditional bail, yes, but bail nonetheless. The reason? An undisclosed illness. We don't know what the illness was. We don't know how serious it was. But it was enough for a judge to let him out. And just like that, the man accused of strangling Aneka Townsend and dumping her body in. The ocean was back on the streets. His trial was set for October 15th, 2025, almost 3 years after Aneka's death. For Aneka's family, it was a slap in the face. For her son, it meant growing up knowing that the man accused of killing his mother was walking free. For her 300,000 followers, it was a reminder that justice doesn't always move fast. But Patterson's freedom wouldn't last forever. For over 2 years, Rushane Patterson walked free. He was out on bail, waiting for his trial. Aneka's family waited. Her son waited. Her friends waited. And her 300,000 followers waited. But on the morning of February 25th, 2025, everything changed. It was 6:30 a.m. The sun was just starting to rise over Dundee Pen, Hanover, a quiet community where Patterson had been staying at his parents' home. He was there with his mother and his son, just a regular morning, or so it seemed. Then police showed up. It wasn't just a few officers. This was a full raid. Armed police stormed the property, moving fast and with purpose. They were there for Patterson. What happened next depends on who you ask. According to police, a firefight broke out. They claim Patterson was armed and opened fire on the officers. In response, police fired back. When the smoke cleared, Rushane Patterson was dead. But Patterson's family tells a very different story. A relative who was there that morning said, "There was no confrontation. Dem wake him up out of his bed and shot him." In other words, the family claims Patterson was asleep when police entered. They say he never had a chance to fight back. They say he was executed. So who's telling the truth? The evidence at the scene raises questions. Investigators found bullet holes everywhere. 5 in the bedroom walls, 2 in the glass window. The veranda was riddled with bullets. It looked like a war zone. If Patterson really did open fire first, that would explain the damage. But if he didn't, then why were there so many shots fired? Why did police feel the need to shoot that many times? We may never know the full truth. What we do know is that Rushane Patterson, the man accused of strangling Aneka Townsend and throwing her body in the ocean, was dead. And for Aneka's family, that brought a complicated kind of closure. Aneka's mother, Joy Smith, was at home when she got the news. Police sent her a text message, just a simple text, telling her that Patterson was gone. Joy didn't waste any time. She grabbed her relatives and rushed to Dovecote Cemetery, the place where Aneka was buried. They stood at her grave, and for the first time in over 2 years, Joy felt something close to peace. She told reporters, "The police texted me and told me what happened, and it maybe cannot bring her back, but at least I got justice." Justice. But was it really justice? Patterson never stood trial. He never faced a jury. He never had to answer for what he did to Aneka. There was no courtroom, no verdict, no sentence, just bullets. Some people might say that's exactly what he deserved. That a man who strangled a woman and dumped her in the ocean doesn't deserve a fair trial, that the world is better off without him. Others might say that everyone deserves their day in court. That justice should come from a judge and jury, not from a police raid at 6:30 in the morning. There's no easy answer. What we do know is that Aneka's son will grow up knowing the man accused of killing his mother is gone. Joy Smith can visit her daughter's grave without wondering if Patterson is out there living his life. And Aneka's 300,000 followers can close this chapter, knowing that one way or another, Patterson paid for what he did. But the case isn't completely over. Rohan Rose, the security guard who knew about the murder and didn't report it, is still facing charges. His case is ongoing, with a court date set for January 2026. He'll have to answer for his silence, for the time he gave Patterson to run, for the role he played in delaying justice. As for Patterson, his story ended in gunfire. Whether that was justice or something else, you'll have to decide for yourself. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on something controversial. Do you think Patterson's death was justice, or should he have faced trial? Should he have had his day in court, or did he get exactly what he deserved? And here's another question. What would you say to Aneka's son if you could? How do you comfort a child who lost his mother in such a horrible way? Have you ever known someone who seemed to have it all together, only to have their life end tragically? Someone who was finally getting their fresh start, just like Aneka? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more deep dive true crime content like this. We cover cases that deserve to be heard, and your support helps us keep going. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that we need to pay attention to the warning signs, because looking back, those signs were there. Let's start with the red flags in relationships. Roshine Patterson had a history of violence against women. Back in 2018, 4 years before he killed Aneka, he beat another woman in a jealous rage. That wasn't just a one-time mistake. That was a pattern. Jealousy, control, violence. If someone has hurt a partner before, they're likely to do it again. And often, it gets worse if you're in a relationship with someone who shows signs of extreme jealousy, who tries to control where you go or who you talk to, who has a history of violence. Those are red flags you can't ignore. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And don't be afraid to walk away, even if that person seems charming or apologetic. Aneka didn't know about Patterson's past, but if she had, maybe she would have made a different choice that night. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that influencers and public figures need to be extra careful about their safety. Aneka traveled 150 miles from Kingston to Montego Bay to meet Patterson. We don't know if anyone else knew where she was going or who she was meeting. And that's a problem. If you're traveling to meet someone, especially someone you don't know well, always share your plans with a trusted friend or family member. Tell them where you're going, who you're meeting, and when you expect to be back. Use tracking apps like Find My Friends so someone always knows your location. And vet your connections. Just because someone seems nice on social media doesn't mean they're safe in real life. Do your research. Ask mutual friends about them. Meet in public places first. Don't put yourself in vulnerable situations with people you barely know. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that silence enables violence. Rohan Rose knew about Aneka's murder. He knew what Patterson had done. But he didn't report it. He stayed quiet. And because of that, Patterson had time to run, time to cover his tracks, time to delay justice. If you know about a crime, especially a violent crime, you have a responsibility to speak up. Staying silent doesn't protect you. It protects the person who committed the crime. And it puts other people at risk. Use platforms like Jamaican or your local crime tip lines to report what you know. You don't have to give your name. You just have to do the right thing. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that technology can save lives if you use it right. Enable location history on your phone. Use two-factor authentication on your social media accounts to prevent stalking or hacking. Be mindful of what you share online. Don't post your exact location in real time. Don't share details about where you live or where you'll be alone. These small steps can make a huge difference. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that our justice system has serious gaps. Patterson was charged with murder. He had a history of violence, and yet he was granted bail. He walked free for over 2 years while waiting for trial. How does that happen? How does someone accused of strangling a woman and dumping her body in the ocean get to go home? We need stronger laws. We need risk assessments before bail is granted in violent cases. We need to prioritize the safety of victims and their families over the convenience of the accused. If Aneka's story teaches us anything, it's that the pressures of influencer life are real. Aneka had over 300,000 followers. She ran a business. She was a mother. She was constantly in the public eye. And while she seemed strong and confident online, her friends said she was open about her struggles. Being an influencer isn't just about posting pretty pictures. It's about dealing with constant judgment, online harassment, and the pressure to always seem perfect. And that can take a toll. If you're living your life online, make sure you have real support offline. Talk to a therapist. Build a strong circle of friends and family who know the real you. Don't let your worth be defined by likes and comments. And if you or someone you know is dealing with violence or abuse, there are resources that can help. In Jamaica, you can call the Family and Sexual Violence Unit at 1866-452-0. You can reach out to the Women's Crisis Center for support and shelter. And no matter where you are in the world, there are hotlines and organizations ready to help you. You don't have to face it alone. Aneka's story didn't have to end the way it did. But maybe, by learning from it, we can prevent the next tragedy. Let's go back to where we started, October 18th, 2022. Aneka Townsend is standing in front of her camera, holding the keys to her new house. She's smiling. She's proud. She's hopeful. The caption reads, "New beginning." That video got 165,000 views. Thousands of people celebrated with her. They told her she deserved it. They told her they were proud of her. And she did deserve it. After everything she'd been through, after all the struggles she'd been open about, Aneka had finally made it. She had her business. She had her son. She had her followers. And now, she had her house. But that new beginning never came. 3 days later, she was gone. Strangled. Beaten. Thrown into the ocean like she didn't matter. Aneka left behind a son who will grow up without his mother. She left behind 300,000 followers who admired her strength and authenticity. She left behind a business she built from the ground up. And she left behind a legacy of living in her truth, no matter what anyone thought. But she also left behind questions. What triggered that argument on October 20th? Was it something Aneka said? Was it Patterson's jealousy? Could it have been prevented if someone had known about his violent past? Could it have been prevented if Rohan Rose had spoken up sooner? We'll never know for sure. What we do know is that Aneka's story doesn't have to be just another true crime case that we watch and forget. Share this video. Talk about it with your friends and family. Recognize the red flags in your own life or in the lives of people you love. Speak up when something doesn't feel right. Don't stay silent when you know someone is in danger. Aneka's death was a tragedy, but if her story can save even one life, then maybe, just maybe, it wasn't for nothing. Rest in peace, Aneka Townsend. Your truth lives on. If you want to see more cases like this, check out the video on your screen right now. And remember, subscribe, because every story deserves to be told. Every victim deserves to be remembered. And every life matters. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.